Oh.
Well, just a couple of quick comments about where you're at. Let me just say this, and I'm going to introduce some folks, including myself and the other folks that we have here from the staff and from our staff, so to speak. First of all, West Virginia is a very interesting state, and what you have to know, of course, is that we are shaped in a very, very interesting way. If you look at the map of West Virginia, you know, it's almost like Texas in the sense that it's got that funny shape to it, right? And I just want to say that West Virginia was the only state that came out of being a state as a result of the Civil War in this country. And the reason, of course, it's shaped like this is because of those counties that chose to go with the North, as you know, the counties in Virginia went with the Confederacy. So that's part of the reason why it's shaped this way. And if you look at the northern part, the Panhandle right here goes way up north, way, way, way above Pittsburgh, little Panhandle here. And if you look at the western part, Huntington, where your family was at one time, if you draw a line straight up and look where it goes toward the North Pole, it is actually west of Detroit. If you look at the southern part, you know, we're into the so-called, you know, the mountains and the areas, the coal mining areas of Kentucky and Virginia. If you look over here, the Panhandle goes right to Washington, D.C. And that's where John Brown, of course, had at Harper's Ferry, you know, the whole situation in regard to slavery and all that sort of thing. And I might say as well is that if you look at West Virginia, the larger cities, and of course you flew into Charleston, correct? Most of you flew to Charleston. And Charleston is, Tim, how big? 50,000. 50,000. West Virginia's got a population 1.8 million. Largest city, 50,000. And it's the capital. Aside from the capital, the other so-called large cities, Huntington, where you were, about 50,000 as well, close to Charleston. You go up here to Parkersburg, you know, maybe, what, 20,000. Wheeling, Steel area, you know, maybe not even that. Morgantown, which is where the University of West Virginia University is, which is only a few miles from the Pennsylvania line, it's way up here. Martinsburg, which is on a commuter line to Washington, D.C., 16 or 17,000. You come down to the southern part, kind of an area where you're at, but if you go a little further south, Beckley and Bluefield, you're into maybe a population area of 50 or 16,000. Those are the so-called larger cities. That's it. Everybody else lives in rural areas in the middle of the state, like here, okay? In what we call, if they're incorporated in cities, but they're not really what you would call cities, you know, 1,000, 2,000, you know, those kind of small places. Oak Hill and Fayette County being the largest city in our county. It's a long corridor for rafting, national park, for the Canadians to go to Florida, etc., right? And has all the stores that you might think of as, you know, kind of what you would expect. But the rest of the county is basically sucked dry. And that's typically true for most of the areas that we're talking about, because as you drive around, I know you came in today, and you haven't yet driven around very much yet, but if you do, you'll see all these small towns that say unincorporated, 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 because all those small towns are not having local government. By not having local government, it means they can't apply for grants, they can't do all kinds of things. You know, they are just groups of people that have come together from these old coal camps, and they're, of course, historical communities. And like Bears Fork, you know, at one time was a school, church, big store. Deb grew up here. Deb went to school here. You know, Artie went to school here. But I mean, at one time, you know, these towns were thriving coal camps and had lots of things going on. Now they're not. But still, some of these towns that even are incorporated are relics of the past. Like, for example, Thurman, which is still a city in Fayette County, but only has, you know, 7 people. Okay, and they all run for office, and they're all elected, and they all, you know, it's all very democratic. But you know, basically, they never turned in their city charter. You know, and if you were into films, some of you might be into films. John Sayles is an independent filmmaker. He made Make One, a film. He filmed it in Fairmont, the town, and we have it here if you want to watch it. But anyway, I just want to point out that the state, you know, is kind of interesting in that regard. And then, of course, here in West Virginia, there are actually two states, one on top of the other. There are those that are on the surface, who own some surface land here and there, and little plots. And then there's the mineral, owned by 3 or 4 companies. Basically, large holding companies that own the mineral rights, even owning the mineral rights under the national forest, which means they have the right to mine coal, get the gas, you know, et cetera, as they see fit. Anyway, okay, so that's where you're at. Here in Fayette County, we are what is called by the Appalachian Regional Commission a distressed at-risk county. There are certain counties in Appalachia that have that category, and this is one of them for socioeconomic reasons. And then, under the Clinton administration, they passed another designation called the Enterprise Community Farm Zone areas, and we're in that as well. So it's like one level below being at risk and distressed, right? Is the situation here. So, all that said, to give you some sort of sense of where you're at, let's introduce folks and introduce yourselves too. Why don't we go around and just